Hey all, welcome to part 5. In this video, we look at the use of a Shopsmith. I've actually got 2 posted up in this video for specific reasons, and I talk through that in this video as to why I went to 2. I could stick with one. One would absolutely serve the purpose, but I have some reasonings behind going to 2 of them. So if you have any questions on the Shopsmith, please feel free to ask in the comments section below. I just think this is a really valuable tool that sets into my idea behind the shop is having multi-function, multi-use out of my tooling and out of my workspaces. So hopefully you enjoy the content of this part. Okay, next up is our couple of these are Shopsmiths. Both this and this are Shopsmith's tools. I first learned of Shopsmith a couple of years ago, and once I saw it, I was like, that's just cool. I have this love, which we kind of moved through, of just old vintage American tooling, especially the tooling that was, the intended purpose was that home DIYers, you know, Craftsman, Shopsmith, all of these type of companies that kind of fit that bill of being that piece, which was like, how do we get this product into the consumer's hands so they can do all this stuff? And back in the times when this stuff was built, it was built to last. It was, you'll hear in some videos out there, these are generational pieces. These are, or multi-generational pieces. They're intended to not only last for your lifetime, but to move on past that. This particular one here is from 1956. This one's a little bit newer. As I got into the Shopsmiths, me being me, I also was like, hey, what's kind of the best that they have to offer from a functional standpoint? This thing gets all the style points, still super usable, super functional, don't get me wrong. This one, I don't know, maybe a little bit less in style and more on function. So it was a bit of concession on that. But I eventually moved to this and then went back and took the 1956 and actually did what was called making it into a shorty. Got a video that'll launch a bit on that as well, is taking this down because I just did not have the space to have another full-size machine in here. This allowed me to cut it down and it's much easier to store. So back behind the previous where I went through like my welding table with some cabinets behind it, this actually wheels very nicely right in between those, totally up and out of the way in an area that I'm not always working. So that works really well. But then if I am in a spot where I'm working on pieces, say I am working on this particular Shopsmith, I've got this other one behind me. So we're taking a machine that is, its intended purpose is to be multifunctional, right? This thing, and I'm not going to list out everything, so for all the Shopsmith gurus, I'll miss something. I get that. But this could do table saw. This could do, you know, it folds up and does drill press. I could do routing. I could do shaping. I could do sanding. I could do lathe work. I could do bandsaw. This bandsaw is connected to that. I could do jigsaw. There's just a wealth of stuff that could be done with it. Sure, you're going to have setup time, but this gives me what, 7, 8, 9, 10 tools in one. I've got to move and I've got to store some of the components, but it's still taking up way less space than a, you know, having an individual bandsaw and then an individual table saw and then an individual jigsaw and then a lathe and for wood lathe and so on and so forth. So this puts it all into one kind of compact area, and it does it all. That's what I love about kind of the use of this. There is a YouTube channel called My Growth Rings. Great space to learn more about kind of how to use these more than I would want to get into here. So why do I have 2? Well, my original thing was to have this one primarily set up as a table saw and leave it as that. That way I didn't have to get into adjusting tables all the time and squaring up and doing all that. And so then I decided to take this other one, which I would not use as a table saw. And this could be set up to run things like my jointer. It could run my disc sander. It could run my belt sander, which is right here. I could even take those pieces off, put this table and this table and have a nice workspace. Bunch of areas where that was going to come in, which is why I decided to go for 2. You'll also find that you could spend as little or as much as you want on these things, right? So brand new with, I ended up upgrading this. I got a really good deal on what's called the power head. So it takes it from this mechanical, kind of throttle control or variable speed to this full electronic. I don't have the touch screen version, which they have out now, but to me, it added a ton more use out of that piece. So I upgraded to that. But if you buy brand new, you're going to spend a fair amount of money. You could also go and jump on Facebook Marketplace, jump on Craigslist, jump on OfferUp, jump anywhere that stuff is for sale, garage sales, and you'll see these things for free. You'll see them for $50. You'll see them for $100. So it's a great way to get into a tool and just wait around and get the stuff on the cheap, so you're not in it a whole ton of money. And that's, I did that where I ended up buying a handful of these machines just so I can get some of the accessories that I wanted to build this out to a full-blown system. And then I would sell off the whole machine or the parts or whatever it was that I wasn't using. And through that, I've ended up with some really unique pieces, right? Some brand new in the box stuff, some, Shopsmith throughout the decades. They started, I think it was in the 40s. This, what's called the Mark V, started in the 50s, which was cool. It was local here in the SF Bay area, is where they actually started by a company called Magna. Did not know that before I got into them. And they've done a lot of different things to build these systems out throughout the years. Some of the stuff gets discontinued. You run across it, and it's just unique, well thought out pieces on that. So that's why I have two, and that's why there's two different pieces. Now, I'd say, but wait a minute. This was set up as a table saw, permanent table saw. Didn't we just see a table saw? We did. So hold on. Let's look at that. Because I picked that up in recent times, kind of unexpectedly, and there was specific reasons to that, right? So I ended up with this here, which is the saw stop. This is actually the smallest saw stop that they make. This is it's called a CTS. And so the CTS is super compact. That's what it stands for, compact table saw. But it has the technology that when set up correctly and you have all of the stuff turned on and you haven't bypassed it, I'm going to save my digits, right? I like this finger. I'd like to keep it around for a little bit longer. I also talked about earlier how I plan to teach my son various skills. I want him to be able to use a table saw. Growing up, I'd always say I'd say it now, I don't think my dad knew what side of a screwdriver to use. You could hand it to him, and I don't think he knew which side to put into the screw and actually use. That wasn't anything he was able to do. So we learned along the way, because there was a lack of money to make, to go pay somebody. Plus, I don't know, some hidden desire to just accomplish things on your own. So I want to build Quinn into that, but this allows, if it detects skin, it shuts the blade, it retracts the blade, stops it, so on and so forth. So from a safety perspective, I was all after this. Again, who wouldn't want the biggest and the best? They make fantastic cabinet saws. I've played around with them in the past. No sponsorship whatsoever, but I've played around with them in the past. Hey, if they want to send me one and give me one, I'll take it. I love the technology that exists, but in my current setup, I couldn't make a full cabinet saw work without giving something else up. I do have a backup plan. I can theoretically make it work. Some things would have to finagle and move around, but I'm not doing production cabinets. I'm not doing production furniture making. I need this for doing what it's going to need to do, which is going to make a variety of cuts. I've used it a handful of times in the couple of weeks I've had it. And it's going to serve its purpose really, really well. Spent a fair amount of time. The person that I bought it from, again, bought this used, I could tell spent a good amount of time setting themselves up with the how to configure it and get it so it's cutting at 90 degrees, and I spent a little bit more time on it. So this thing is as precise as I absolutely need it to be. And then I built the table for it. This is, just quick. I've got it set up so it's multi-function. Set height, including the rolling stand, so that it matched the MFT tables. I can store my router kind of benchtop routing table directly underneath it, access from the backside. So I roll it out and pull it. And then I was able to put my my pocket hole jig hanging off the side of it. So this piece also worked well to, again, be that multifunction that I'm after, while at the same time hold as much as I possibly could. So this has been a kind of a cool piece for me to add on for this side of it, and why I went with this versus setting up the table saw on the Shopsmith. I won't need that on that other, the bigger model. I'll do like 99% of my cuts on here than I would on the Shopsmith. And the Shopsmith is totally accurate. The Shopsmith is a great table saw. As precise as you could set it up to be or need it to be. But the only difference is the technology where this, I can't cut hot dogs, so watch videos, you understand what I'm saying. I won't cut off my fingers, right? Where I can't, I'm not gonna get that out of any other brand currently. If we were going one for one and that technology didn't exist, I would 100% say with the Shopsmith, because I'm just really getting this massive workspace and so on and so forth. So that is kind of why I've got the double Shopsmiths. It's also why I've now also got the additional table saw in here, which is going to change the way I will end up using this guy, right? So that will still find its use. It's going to see a little bit more of the other functions. I've done some upgrades on it, which will give it some really good flexibility as well. So. All right, all, thanks for tuning in to this video where we did review the Shopsmiths and how I have them set up and ultimately how I use them. We'll see them in some future projects coming up, and as well I'll have a video posted up, like I mentioned, of me taking that one Shopsmith down to a shorter version and what it takes to make that happen and make that work. As we move over to part 6, we're going to visit what's directly behind me, the 3D printing area of the shop and how I set this particular space up.